קודם כל אני מבקש את סליחתכם, אני אדבר באנגלית, אל תשאלו אותי למה. I was asked by the Rosen family to speak about my connection with Mickey through some of the works that I did for Yakar. My first Hekedut with Mickey occurred in the late 80s when I was doing my studies in London. Yakar was like a breath of fresh air for me, especially compared to many of the shuls which I found myself davening in London and throughout England, where it was very chazan-centered, and the kahal was basically either very passive or just talking throughout the entire davening. Yakar was very different in the sense that we all know the seriousness of the tefillah, the nigunim, the emphasis on pnimiyut. Mickey's drashot were somewhat radical in the sense that he was oftentimes critical of the religious establishment. What impressed me most about, one of the things that impressed me about Mickey was his all-inclusive view of the religious experience, which is not limited to just tefillah or limud or a narrow definition of a mitzvah, but incorporated all the arts, music, the visual arts, theater, and this very much spoke to me, and Yakar became a sort of spiritual home for me in a certain sense. The davening at, the Shabbat davening at Yakar, well, the Shabbat davening at Yakar here is Huatak, was copied from, brought from how it was done in London, the same thing. We davened Shacharit, they went upstairs for Kiddush and Shiurim. Shiurim often happened in the library. They had a real full library there with a librarian, Jonathan Gorski. And at the entrance to the library was this picture frame hanging on the wall. And in the picture frame was this crumpled piece of paper hanging there. It was a straightened out crumpled piece of paper with old typewritten Hebrew on it. And it was this beautiful text by Rav Kook. It starts off, Asur lirat shamayim shetidchak et hamusar hativi shel ha'adam. Religious behavior must not be allowed to compromise one's natural moral sensitivities. And it was the whole quotation was there. And I thought it was sort of odd that it was presented in this sort of a little, not I wouldn't say not mechubad, but I felt that something could have done a little bit better. A few months later, Nicky had written a letter to the editor in the Jewish Chronicle, and I forget what was irking Nicky at the time, but in it he quoted this entire passage in English by Rav Kook, in English, translated, beautiful translation by the librarian Jonathan Gorski. And then it clicked that I would like to actually do this piece, Hebrew and English, as part of my school project, and then present it to Mickey and Yakar as a gift, just saying thank you for all that Yakar meant to me. And so I did the piece. I think it was only then that I actually introduced myself to Mickey and told him who I was, what I was doing in London, and I invited him to see the piece and see if he wanted to accept the gift, and he saw it, he liked it. Then he surprised me by actually saying that he always felt that calligraphy was the ideal form for Jewish artistic expression. When I heard that, obviously it very pleased me, and to paraphrase the line from Casablanca, I thought this was going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Okay, fast forward a few months, fast forward a few years, the Rosens make Aliyah, Mickey sets up Yakar Yerushalayim, and he asked me to be involved in some of the artworks that he wanted in the shul, starting with the lettering for the Aron Kodesh. Now, if I remember correctly, and if I'm wrong, don't correct me. If I remember the Yakar in London, there was a stage, like a theater stage, right? And there was this portable Aron Kodesh, right? It was a thing. And then the way I remember it is that the walls were sort of inset, and plastered on the walls were these letters, Ma Yakar Chastacha, set up in a very playful, almost random arrangement. That's how, at least how I remember it. And Mickey asked me to do something similar here. And I looked at the space, and that didn't feel right for how spread out he wanted the letters. And also it's hard for me to describe it, just there's something that feels more about the space, the spiritual space here. It seems a bit more intimate, more intense than that space in London. And I felt I wanted something with a more concentrated energy, with more dynamic tension going on within the Ma Yakar Chastacha. Mickey always said that he wanted Yakar, that he felt Yakar should be a place where has some melding, some combination of both the passion of the European yeshiva and the rationality of the modern mind. I don't know how rational the modern mind is. So I wanted a bit of this passion, this fire within the letters, and so I packed them quite tightly, to cause this sort of tension interaction between the letters. And this is what came out of it. The question I'm often asked most is why white? Everybody says, oh, why don't you use color? Why didn't you use gold? Gold would have been fantastic. The idea of white and white is obviously Mickey's idea. And it was, for him, it expressed the idea of seen yet unseen. Then he goes on further to, and I'll just quote his words because no one speaks like Mickey speaks. So, the white on white expresses for me a subtlety. The relationship with God, as reflected by white on white, expresses the nuance of what actually is there. What am I really seeing? The religious experience is thus not reflected in the loud voice, in the dramatic, but in the inner voice, seen yet unseen, which draws one closer. The idea of drawing one closer will bring me closer to the last piece I'm going to talk about, which is Rav Kook's Shir Merubah. I think the Rosen family thought it would be interesting if I involved you in the discussions that went on between me and Mickey regarding each of the pieces. The truth is there was almost no discussion between me and Mickey regarding pieces. Mickey gave me carte blanche, really, he gave me the text and he said, do whatever you want with it. But Dafka in this piece, Mickey had some request or requirement that in the end I wasn't able to give him what he wanted. Originally he wanted the piece to go throughout the entire shul. And to take up each shir on a different wall. I had trouble seeing it that way because the piece requires a certain amount of continuity. And so with the mechitza in the middle, you wouldn't be able, it's not like a gallery where you can walk around on Shabbat. Just to have the disconnected shirim didn't feel right. And also the shapes of the walls were different. And so to put one shir on each wall also didn't fill up the space right. And to make it more difficult, Mickey wanted the whole thing to be interchangeable. He wanted to be able to take a piece from here, move it around there, take the whole thing, move it upstairs, move it to a different venue. The reason why I wanted to do this is because Mickey always wanted to keep everyone on their toes. The worst thing for him was complacency, was lashevet levetach. And he felt that if the pieces would just stand there for years and years, it wouldn't move, eventually they would just disappear into the walls. Everything would be stagnant. And for Mickey, I think stagnation was one of the worst religious sins that one can be over on. So I tried to give him what he wanted. I first started in a completely different direction. I started with a very painterly piece. A lot of paint in the background. Shirat HaNefesh, that's the first one. I'll mention the other ones a bit later. Shirat HaNefesh, where one's whole religious life is being contained within one's nefesh, one's whole relationship is an internal affair. And I did this very painterly piece, Tapuchot HaNefesh, he called it the Kutzker piece. But I couldn't go on from there. It just didn't move in any direction. I didn't know how to continue it that way. And so I had to tell him that I couldn't do it that way. I think the piece is now in the office there. By the way, it's on loan. Okay, so let me just, for those of you that are not familiar with Shir Merubah, Rav Kook mentions 4 shirim: Shirat HaNefesh, Shirat HaUmah, Shirat HaAdam, and Shirat HaOlam. Shirat HaNefesh is, as I said, one's shir is completely in one's own soul. Shirat HaUmah, person's connection with his fellow Jew, with Am Yisrael. Shirat HaAdam, one's connection with the entire humanity. And Shirat HaOlam, where one connects with the entire cosmos. Mickey and I actually did have a discussion about this. We were deciding whether Rav Kook is talking about 4 separate personalities, 4 separate modes of Avodat Hashem, or is he talking about some evolutionary process? 4 separate modes of personality, each one having equal value and equal legitimacy, or is Rav Kook talking about some evolutionary process going on, where one may start with himself in his whole world, inner world, but then then goes on and expands this soul of his to include his fellow Jew, humanity, and the entire cosmos, and each one a higher madrega. And I think after our discussion, we both felt that Rav Kook was pointing in this direction, and that's probably why I ended up going with the each one going up to a higher, ascending in an ascension. Even though it's called Shir Merubah, which is quartet, you might notice that there are 5 panels there, and that's because Rav Kook mentions the 5th person. And that's the person who incorporates all these songs within himself, within his personality. And when I was going over the text, preparation for this talk, it suddenly dawned on me that this person who incorporates all these shirim, that really epitomizes Mickey, or what he was striving for, in the sense that he was always trying to balance these different melodies that were playing within himself, and always trying to take these different melodies and compose his own beautiful song, his own shir hashirim. If I read to you the last quotation, the part of the last keta, this person who is able to incorporate all these things. V'yesh asher oleh im kol hashirim halalu biyachad ba'aguda achat v'kulam notnim et kolotehem kulam yachad man'imim et zimrehem. Then later on, Shirat HaNefesh, Shirat HaUmah, Shirat HaAdam, Shirat HaOlam, Kulan Yachad Mitmazgot B'kirbo, B'chol Eit U'B'chol Sha'ah. V'atmimut hazot b'milu'ah, Ola lihiyot Shirat Kodesh, Shirat El. And he ends up, Yisrael, Shir El, Shir Pashut, Shir Kaful, Shir Mishulash, Shir Merubah, Shir HaShirim Asher L'Shlomo, LaMelech Sha'Shalom Shelo. This is, I think, what Mickey was and what Mickey was striving for. He's a Zor Baruch, and may his memory live on in all of us. Amen.